Move that loud box somewhere else. My lunch is getting cold. Those were the words that hit my courtroom like a slap. I sat on the bench in Providence Municipal Court, and I felt my jaw tighten. Not because someone was rude to me, I have heard rude before, but because those words were about an ambulance. A real ambulance, with a real person inside fighting for breath. I looked down at the woman who said it. She was 38 years old. Her name was Marla Kessler. She wore a sharp white blazer that looked like it cost more than some people's rent. Her hair was smooth and perfect, like she had a stylist on speed dial. Her nails were long and shiny. Her face held this bored, irritated look, like she was stuck in a line at a store she hated. She stood like the world owed her space. And beside her, seated at the defense table, was a man in a wrinkled uniform shirt with a name patch that read EMT. He kept his eyes down. His hands were clasped tight, like he was trying to hold himself together. In that moment, I did not know all the details yet. I did not know how bad it really was. But I knew this. When someone refuses to make room for an ambulance, they are not just blocking a vehicle. They are blocking time. And time is the one thing you cannot give back. I leaned forward and let the silence grow, just long enough for her to feel it. If you believe justice should be equal for everyone, you'll want to see what happens next. The courtroom air felt thick. Even the people in the gallery, sitting shoulder to shoulder on those hard wooden benches, stopped shifting and whispering. They sensed it too. This was going to be one of those days. The bailiff's voice cut through the quiet, strong and clear. Case 2026 TR 41872, City of Providence versus Marla Kessler. I nodded once. I always try to start calm. A courtroom is not a stage. It is a place where people's lives can turn. Good morning, I said, steady and professional. Ms. Kessler, please step forward. She walked up like the floor belonged to her. Her heels clicked sharp like little hammers. She did not look at me like I was the judge. She looked at me like I was a problem to get past. I glanced at the file. You are charged with failure to yield to an emergency vehicle and reckless obstruction of a traffic lane. She sighed loudly, like I was reading a boring menu. I looked to my right. I see we have a complaining witness. Sir, please stand and tell me your name. The man in the EMT shirt stood. He looked like he had been awake for days. His skin was pale, his eyes tired and red, like he had cried or had not slept. His name patch read Rivera, and his hands shook just a little as he held the railing. My name is Eli Rivera, he said. His voice was gentle but strained. What do you do for work, Mr. Rivera? I asked. I'm an EMT, he said. I ride in the ambulance. I help people. I also drive sometimes when we're short. I nodded. How long have you been doing this? 7 years, he said. 7 years. That is a long time to see the worst days of people's lives. He swallowed hard. I pick up extra shifts, Your Honor. My mom has kidney problems. She needs treatments. Insurance doesn't cover everything. So, I work a lot. I let that hang in the air. A man working extra shifts to keep his mother alive. That is the kind of quiet hero nobody claps for. And why are you here today? I asked him. His eyes finally lifted. Because I was in the ambulance that day. And because the patient in the back almost didn't make it. The gallery made a soft sound, a low murmur, not loud, just enough. I looked back at Ms. Kessler. She rolled her eyes, actually rolled them, like a teenager. That was the first disrespect moment. I held my voice even. Ms. Kessler, this is not a theater. This is a court of law. You will show respect to everyone in this room. She smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was sharp. Of course, Judge. Respect. Sure. The way she said sure made my stomach turn. It was polite on the outside, but it carried poison underneath. In the gallery, a woman shook her head. A man whispered, unbelievable. I kept my face calm. I have learned that anger is easy. Control is harder. Let's talk about what happened, I said. Ms. Kessler lifted her chin. I was in my car. There was traffic. I didn't have anywhere to go. I glanced at the notes. According to the report, the ambulance had lights on and siren on. She shrugged. Sirens are loud. That's not my fault. I looked at Mr. Rivera. What happened from your point of view? He took a breath, like he had to push the memory out. We were on Westford Avenue, he said. We got a call for a breathing emergency. A woman named Mrs. Dahlia Moore. She had asthma, but worse. She couldn't speak. She was turning gray. We loaded her fast. We were heading to the hospital. He paused. His voice cracked. When we hit traffic, we did what we always do. Lights, siren, slow, careful. Most people moved. They always do. He turned his head slightly, not fully looking at Marla, but close. But her SUV didn't move. Ms. Kessler cut in fast. I couldn't. There was a car beside me. Mr. Rivera nodded once, like he had heard that excuse before. There was space on the right, he said. A shoulder, not huge, but enough. Other cars used it. I leaned forward. Ms. Kessler, what kind of vehicle were you driving? She said it like she was proud. A black Range Rover. I saw a few heads turn. That detail landed. People know what that means: money, status, power. She added, it's a lease, not that it matters. But she said it like it mattered. I looked down at the file again. The report says you stopped in the lane and remained stopped for 42 seconds while the ambulance was directly behind you. She scoffed. 42 seconds? That's nothing. I heard Mr. Rivera breathe in sharply. I raised my hand a little. Ms. Kessler, 42 seconds can be the difference between life and death. You understand that? She gave a fake little nod. Sure. I could feel the room shifting. People were not just listening now. They were judging her, and not because she was in court, but because of how she acted. Then she did it again. She looked over at Mr. Rivera and said, maybe if you people planned better, you wouldn't be stuck behind normal drivers. You people, that phrase is like a door slamming. Mr. Rivera's face tightened, but he stayed quiet. That told me he was used to swallowing his feelings, probably at work, probably his whole life. I took a slow breath. Ms. Kessler, you will not speak to Mr. Rivera that way. This is your second warning. She held up her hands. Okay, I'm just saying. I nodded once. Now let's move forward. I want evidence. Confrontation one was quick and sharp. Ms. Kessler leaned toward the microphone and said, this is all blown up because my husband is in politics. People love to attack us. That was the first hint. The influence card, the shield. I kept my voice steady. Your husband's job is not on trial. Your actions are. The prosecutor stepped forward. Your Honor, we have evidence number one. Go ahead, I said. Evidence number one was a printed photo set from a traffic camera. Not a video yet. Still shots, time-stamped images. The prosecutor held them up. These are traffic camera images from Westford Avenue. Timestamp shows the ambulance behind the defendant's vehicle. You can see a clear shoulder on the right. You can also see two cars ahead using that shoulder to move over. I studied the photos. The Range Rover was centered in the lane, like a plug in a bottle. The ambulance was right behind it, nose almost touching. I looked at Ms. Kessler. Do you see the shoulder? She glanced barely. Looks small. I asked, do you see other cars using it? She paused. Maybe they had smaller cars. I nodded. Maybe, but you did not even try. She snapped back. I'm not driving into a ditch for anyone. The gallery made a louder sound. Someone said, for anyone? It's an ambulance. I tapped my pen once. Not hard. Just enough to remind the room I was here. Confrontation 2 started when she tried to push authority. She leaned forward and said, Judge, do you know who my husband is? I looked at her. Ms. Kessler, I know who you are. You are the defendant. She smiled like she was amused. My husband is Councilman Grant Kessler. He's very close with the mayor. He funds half the events in this city. This case is embarrassing. I heard a few people in the gallery inhale like they smelled smoke. I kept my eyes on her. You're not here to protect your image. You're here to answer for your choices. The prosecutor stepped forward again. Your Honor, evidence number 2. Proceed, I said. Evidence number 2 was a phone log and a set of text messages pulled with consent from the ambulance's onboard system and the defendant's own phone record from her carrier. Simple. Clear. The prosecutor said, during the obstruction, Ms. Kessler made a phone call. She also sent 2 text messages. The timestamps matched the 42 seconds. I looked at the page. One text read, "Ugh, stuck behind an ambulance. Tell Grant I might be late." Another text, 30 seconds later, "They can wait. I'm not scraping my rims." I felt my chest tighten. Not anger yet. Something colder. Disbelief. I looked up slowly. "Ms. Kessler, did you send these messages?" She shrugged. "Probably. So what?" Mr. Rivera squeezed the rail so hard his knuckles went white. I asked her, "Do you understand what those words mean?" She said, "It means I didn't want to damage my car." I let my voice drop lower. "And the ambulance?" She waved a hand. "They got through eventually." Confrontation 3 was the line cross. The prosecutor said, "Your Honor, evidence number 3. "Go ahead," I said. Evidence number 3 was a video from a bus dash camera. A city bus had been behind the ambulance, and its camera caught everything, including audio through the bus driver's open window. The prosecutor played it. On the screen, I saw the ambulance lights flashing. I heard the siren. I saw cars pulling over. I saw the black Range Rover stay put. Then I heard a voice from inside the Range Rover. The window was down just enough. A woman's voice, sharp and clear. "Stop screaming, I'm trying to eat." The gallery gasped. Then the bus driver's voice on the video said, "Ma'am, it's an ambulance." And the same woman's voice snapped back, louder. "I don't care if it's a spaceship. I was here first." The prosecutor paused the video right there. I looked at Ms. Kessler. "Is that your voice?" She crossed her arms. "It sounds like me." I felt the room boiling now, not screaming, but the kind of anger that makes people sit still because they don't trust themselves to speak. Mr. Rivera's eyes filled with tears. He blinked them back fast. I asked him, "Mr. Rivera, what happened to the patient during those seconds?" He swallowed hard. "She stopped responding," he said. Her breathing got worse. My partner was driving and I was in the back trying to keep her airway open. I was looking at her face, Your Honor. I was watching her fade. He paused, voice shaking. "You know what it feels like when you're doing everything right, but the world is still too slow?" I did know. He continued, "We got through after she finally moved. We got to the hospital. The doctors worked fast. Mrs. Moore survived. But her daughter said she thought she was losing her mom forever." The courtroom was quiet, the kind of quiet that has weight. And Ms. Kessler broke it with a laugh, a small laugh, like someone told a joke. She looked at Mr. Rivera and said, "Oh my gosh, stop being dramatic. She lived." That was it. That was the step over the line. My eyes narrowed. My voice stayed calm, but my tone changed. "Ms. Kessler, you are not going to belittle a man who helped save lives." She leaned in, and that smug smile came back. "Why? Because he's wearing a sad little uniform?" I felt my face change. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I said, "You are in my courtroom. You will speak with decency. Last warning." She tilted her head. "Decency? You want decency? Fine." And then she delivered the line that would make the whole room freeze. "I'll tell you what's decent," she said, clear as a bell. "People like him should learn their place. If an ambulance can't get through traffic, maybe the person inside wasn't meant to make it." 10 seconds of silence followed. Not one cough, not one shuffle. It felt like time itself stopped to stare at what she had just said. I saw Mr. Rivera's mouth open, but no sound came out. His eyes were wide like he'd been punched. In the gallery, a woman covered her child's ears, even though the child was already looking down. A man stood up without meaning to, like his body reacted before his brain could. Then the room erupted. Did she just say that? Oh my God, that's evil! Somebody record that. The bailiff stepped forward, hand near his belt, scanning the room. The prosecutor's face went pale. Even the court clerk looked up from her computer, stunned. I didn't move at first, I just stared at Ms. Kessler. I could hear my own heartbeat, and I could see in her eyes that she thought she was still winning, like she had just said a bold truth and the world needed to accept it. That was the turning point. I leaned forward slowly. Ms. Kessler, I said, my voice quiet but firm, repeat what you just said. She blinked. Why? Because I want you to hear it again, I said, in this room, in front of everyone. She lifted her chin higher, almost proud. If an ambulance can't get through traffic, she repeated, maybe the person inside wasn't meant to make it. The gallery exploded again. The bailiff raised his voice. Order! I raised my hand and the room slowly settled like waves pulling back. My face stayed calm, but inside something was burning, not rage, resolve. Because now this was not just about traffic, this was about humanity. I sat back slightly and I spoke like I was talking to one person, not a crowd. Ms. Kessler, I have seen a lot in this courtroom, I said. I have seen people make mistakes. I have seen fear. I have seen bad choices made on the worst day of someone's life. I paused. But your words are not a mistake. They are a window into who you think matters. I said her name again, slow. Marla Kessler. She shifted, but she didn't look away. Do you know what an ambulance is? I asked. She scoffed. Yes. It is not a loud box, I said. It is not an annoyance. It is a lifeline. I leaned forward. When that siren goes off, it is someone's mother, someone's child, someone's husband, someone's best friend. I turned my eyes toward Mr. Rivera. Mr. Rivera works extra shifts so his mother can get treatment. He shows up when people are on the floor, when people are bleeding, when people are choking, when people are scared. I looked back at Ms. Kessler. And you called his uniform sad. You told him to learn his place. I let the words sit between us. Marla Kessler, I said again, what is your place? She opened her mouth, then shut it. I asked, is your place above the sick, above the dying, above the workers who hold this city together? She snapped, I didn't kill anyone. I nodded once. You are right. You did not kill anyone. Then I leaned in. But you flirted with the idea that it would be acceptable if someone died, as long as your car stayed pretty. Her cheeks reddened. That's not what I meant. I repeated her own words back to her. Maybe the person inside wasn't meant to make it. I asked, what did you mean, Ms. Kessler? Her eyes flicked to the gallery. For the first time, she looked unsure. I continued, calm and steady. You tried to hide behind your husband's title. You tried to use influence like a key. But this court is not a private club. I pointed gently with my pen, not like a weapon, but like a mirror. In Providence Municipal Court, a last name does not buy mercy, and it does not buy a pass. I took a breath. This case is about respect. It is about humility, which means knowing you are not better than the next person. It is about equality, which means the rules are the same for the woman in the Range Rover and the man driving a beat-up sedan. I looked at her, and I spoke plainly. Ms. Kessler, you blocked an ambulance. You mocked the people who serve. You spoke about a human life like it was a coin toss. I nodded toward the screen. And we have the video. We have the traffic photos. We have your own words in your own texts. I let my voice soften just a little. You can't undo those 42 seconds, but you can learn from them. The question is, will you? She swallowed. I held her gaze. Because today, Ms. Kessler, your punishment will fit your crime, and it will also fit your attitude. I straightened the papers in front of me. I like to be clear. I like people to know exactly what is happening and why. Ms. Kessler, here is my sentence. First, I said the financial part, because money is the language some people understand best. You will pay a total of $2,800. Her eyes widened. That's insane. I held up my hand. Let me finish. $1,000 is the base fine for failure to yield and obstruction, I said. $800 will go directly to the city's emergency response training fund, and $1,000 will be paid as restitution, which means repayment, to the Providence EMT Relief Fund. That fund helps EMTs who get hurt or who need support. I looked at her. You complained about your lunch. Now you will help feed the people who run toward danger. She opened her mouth to argue, but I kept going. Second, the license. Your driver's license will be suspended for 90 days, I said. When you get it back, you will be on a strict driving probation for 1 year. Any emergency vehicle violation during that year will bring you back to this courtroom. Her hands clenched. My schedule, I cut in, calm. Your schedule is not more important than someone's heartbeat. Third, community service, and I made it tied to the harm she caused. You will complete 160 hours of community service, I said. She scoffed. Doing what? Picking up trash? I shook my head. No, you are going to learn what the siren means. I continued, precise. You will report every Saturday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. for 10 Saturdays. Her eyes darted. Where? At the Providence Emergency Preparedness Center, I said, using a made-up city facility name for this fictional case. You will assist with CPR practice stations, set up training equipment, and help with community safety classes. I added, you will also spend 20 hours in a hospital patient support program. Not in medical areas. You will not touch patients. You will help families find waiting rooms, bring water, and listen when they are scared. Her face tightened. Listen? Yes, I said. Listen, because you spoke too easily about someone not making it. Fourth, public accountability. You will write a handwritten apology, I said. Not typed, handwritten, 2 pages. She rolled her eyes again, smaller this time. I said, you will read that apology aloud at a court-approved community safety talk at a middle school. 10 minutes. You will explain what you did, why it was wrong, and what you learned. The gallery murmured again, but this time it was approval. And, I added, you will record a 30-second public service message, a PSA, court-approved script. The message will be played at the start of the city's annual safety workshop. The message is simple: move for emergency vehicles. Every second matters. She sputtered. This is humiliating. I nodded slowly. It is. Then I looked her straight in the eyes. But humiliation is not the goal. Humility is the goal. Then I addressed the contempt, because she crossed a line in my courtroom with her nuclear quote and her insults. Ms. Kessler, your words today were not just offensive. They showed contempt for human life and for this court. I turned slightly to the bailiff. Bailiff, please step forward. The bailiff moved. The sound of his shoes on the floor was heavy in the quiet room. Miss Kessler's eyes widened. What are you doing? I said. You will spend 48 hours in custody. The gallery gasped again. She jerked back. You can't. I have events. I raised my hand. You will have time to think. The bailiff reached for the cuffs. The metal sound was small but loud in that moment. She looked around, searching for rescue, like the walls might bend for her. I said, you will return here for a review hearing on March 10th. If you show real effort, real change, I will consider modifying certain parts of the sentence. If you treat this like a joke, I will not. The cuffs clicked, and for the first time, Marla Kessler looked scared, not annoyed, not bored, scared. 3 months later, I saw her name on my calendar again. Review hearing. I walked into Providence Municipal Court that morning with a familiar feeling. I have seen people come back changed. I have also seen people come back angry. Ms. Kessler stood at the defense table again, but she looked different. No white blazer, no perfect hair. She wore a plain navy sweater. Her nails were short. Her eyes had dark circles. She held a folder with papers, and her hands were not steady. That told me something. The prosecutor said, Your Honor, we have documentation of her community service hours. I looked through the folder, signed logs, supervisor notes, attendance sheets. Then I saw something I didn't expect. A letter, handwritten. I asked, "Ms. Kessler, is this your apology?" "Yes," she said, barely above a whisper. I looked at her. "Do you want to read part of it?" She swallowed hard. "Yes." She took a breath and read, her voice shaking. "I thought my life was more important than a stranger's emergency. I thought my car mattered more than someone's breath. I was wrong. I was cruel. I said words that should never be said. I can't take them back, but I can live differently." The courtroom was quiet again, but this quiet was different. It wasn't shock. It was listening. She looked up at me, and her eyes were wet. "I met a family in the hospital waiting room," she said. "Their little boy was in surgery. The mom was shaking so bad she couldn't hold her phone. I sat with her for 2 hours. I kept thinking, what if an ambulance got stuck because of someone like me?" She wiped her cheek fast. "I'm sorry, Mr. Rivera." Mr. Rivera was there. He stood slowly. He didn't smile. He didn't clap. He just nodded once. "That's all I wanted," he said quietly, "to be seen like a person." I sat back and felt something ease in my chest. I said, "Ms. Kessler, you completed your hours. You followed the schedule. You showed up. That matters." I paused. "I will not erase what you did, but I will recognize what you chose to do after." I reduced one part of the sentence. The school talk would stay, but I allowed it to be done with a counselor present and in a smaller setting, because the point was learning, not public cruelty. She nodded grateful and left the courtroom without a single eye roll. That day, the room felt lighter, not because the world was perfect, but because someone had been forced to face it. After court, I sat alone for a moment. The courtroom empties in a strange way. The noise fades, but the stories stay. They hang in the wood and the walls. I thought about that ambulance, about Mrs. Moore gasping for air, about her daughter sitting in fear, about Mr. Rivera working extra shifts to keep his mother alive. And I thought about how easy it is for a person with comfort to forget what struggle feels like. Justice is not just about punishment, it is about dignity. It is about reminding people that every life has weight. Some people think the law is a hammer, but I have learned it can also be a mirror. It shows you who you are, and if you don't like what you see, you have a choice. Change. Because in my courtroom and in this city, no one is too rich, too connected, or too important to move aside for a life in danger. That is the moral. And here is the final line I want people to carry with them. When the siren cries, your pride must get out of the way.